Let's dive into some music history today. We're talking the top 11 rock and roll singers and bands from the 50s to the 70s, starting from number 11 and going all the way to the top. Should be fun, right? Stick with us and see if your favorites make the list. And hey, while you're at it, hit that like button, subscribe, and leave us a comment. It really helps us out. Ready to jump in?
Let's do it.
So kicking things off at number 11, we've got a real pioneer, someone who brought a ton of energy to the music scene, Little Richard.
Little Richard, oh man, he was like a bolt of lightning. Before him, rhythm and blues had a certain feel, certain tempo. But Little Richard, he just cranked everything up. He brought this incredible energy, that gospel influence, mixed it with boogie-woogie piano. It was like nothing anyone had heard before.
Yeah, you can't forget those performances, right? The outfits, the personality. He really knew how to own the stage.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. He commanded attention. But it wasn't just about the showmanship. You listen to songs like Tutti Frutti and Long Tall Sally, and you hear this incredible vocal power, these driving rhythms that just make you want to move.
It's wild to think those songs were considered pretty wild back in the day. Some radio stations even tried to censor them, right?
Yeah, it's true. Shows you just how much Little Richard challenged the norms. He was fearless, both in his music and his personality. And that paved the way for so many artists after him, You can hear his influence in everyone from Elvis to the Beatles.
Yeah, it's interesting, though. Little Richard's story, it's a bit complex, right? He had this whole internal conflict between his religious beliefs and his rock and roll career.
Yeah, he did. He actually left secular music several times to focus on his gospel roots. He even went to a seminary for a while. It was this constant back and forth between these two really powerful forces in his life.
So, given his influence, how come he ends up at number 11 on our list?
I think those breaks in his career definitely had an impact. Like, his influence was huge, no doubt, but it was concentrated in those early years of rock and roll. The artists higher on our list, they had longer careers, and ultimately that meant a broader, more long-term influence on the music.
Right. That makes sense. Okay, moving on to number 10. We've got a duo known for their incredible harmonies, the Everly Brothers.
Ah, those harmonies. Don and Phil Everly, they just had this amazing ability to blend their voices. It was both beautiful and kind of haunting. They brought a touch of country sweetness to rock and roll, and it was a sound that, well, it just captured a lot of hearts.
And they had so many hits. Bye Bye Love, Wake Up Little Susie, All I Have to Do Is Dream. Each song was like a vocal masterpiece.
Oh, totally. And their songwriting was top-notch too, right? But what really set them apart were those harmonies. They created this real emotional depth in their music. And that sound, it went on to influence so many other artists, especially in folk rock.
I've always been kind of fascinated by their breakup story. It sounds like something out of a movie.
Oh, it was dramatic, that's for sure. Picture this. 1973, Knott's Berry Farm. They're on stage and tensions are high, And then, mid-song, Phil smashes his guitar and walks off. Just leaves Don to finish the show by himself.
Whoa. What caused that kind of blow up?
Years of creative differences, personality clashes, it all just came to a head that night. They didn't talk to each other for like a decade after that.
Wow, that's rough. But thankfully, they did eventually get back together.
They did. Music has a way of doing that, right? Bringing people back together. I think it's a reminder that even the strongest bonds can get tested.
Right. So why number 10 for the Everly Brothers? Their influence is clear.
Oh, definitely. But like Little Richard, their peak was more in a specific era. And while their harmonies were super innovative and they had a big impact on folk rock, their overall influence maybe didn't have the same kind of reach and staying power as some of the others.
All right. At number 9, we've got a true rock and roll pioneer, but someone whose career was tragically cut short. Buddy Holly?
Buddy Holly, yeah. He was a whirlwind of talent, but it was all crammed in his really short career. Even so, he left a huge mark on the music world. His songwriting was sharp, those vocals were so unique, and he wasn't afraid to experiment.
And those songs are just classics. Peggy Sue, That'll Be the Day. Every day, so catchy, so much energy.
For sure. But what's really fascinating about Buddy Holly? He was one of the first rock and roll artists to really take charge of his music. Back then, it was common for artists to just sing songs written by, professional songwriters. But Buddy Holly, he wrote his own stuff, arranged it, even produced some of his records. He was a true pioneer of the singer-songwriter model.
Makes you wonder what else he might have done if he hadn't died in that plane crash.
Yeah, it's a tragedy that people still talk about. The day the music died, they call it. It's a reminder of how fragile life can be and makes his accomplishments even more remarkable.
So where does Buddy Holly land on our list?
His songwriting, his innovative production, his influence on how bands are structured today, all of that earns him the number 9 spot. It's wild to think he did so much in such a short time.
Okay, coming up next at number 8, we're going into the world of a band that brought a darker, more poetic side to rock and roll, The Doors.
The Doors, they came out of the LA music scene in the mid-60s, and they had this sound that was both captivating and kind of unsettling, rock, blues, psychedelia, but with these dark, introspective lyrics that explored, love, death, rebellion.
And then you've got Jim Morrison, right? It's an enigmatic frontman with an amazing stage presence.
Oh, he was mesmerizing to watch. Unpredictable, charismatic, and, well, definitely controversial. He pushed buttons, and that often got him into trouble, especially with the law.
Their music is so powerful, though. Light My Fire, Riders on the Storm, Break On Through, they're still anthems.
Totally. And they really captured the spirit of the counterculture movement. The Doors, they weren't afraid to question authority, to explore the darker side of things, and that resonated with people, especially people looking for something different.
They weren't afraid to be provocative either. That incident in Miami where Morrison allegedly exposed himself on stage.
Yeah, people still debate what really happened there, but it definitely added to their image as rebels.
So where do the Doors fit in our ranking?
Their poetic darkness, Morrison's stage presence, their impact on the counterculture, all that earns them the number 8 spot. Their career wasn't the longest, but their influence, especially in the late 60s, was significant.
All right, get ready for some serious vocal power. At number 7, we've got the queen of rock and roll, Janis Joplin.
Janis, she was a force of nature, that voice. Raw, powerful, full of emotion. Every performance, she just poured her heart and soul into it.
It's remarkable what she achieved in a music industry that was, well, pretty male-dominated.
Yeah, it really is. She faced a lot of obstacles, but she never backed down. She started out with Big Brother and the holding company, and then she launched her own solo career, which was a huge success. And she did it all on her own terms.
Piece of My Heart, Cry Baby, Me and Bobby McGee. Those songs, they're like testaments to her talent, her ability to connect with people.
Yeah, she could channel everything, her pain, her joy, her vulnerability, right into her music, and people connected with that. Her performance at Woodstock, that was iconic.
Totally iconic.
It solidified her status as a legend, but like so many talented artists from that era, her life was cut way too short.
Behind that powerful stage presence,
Yeah.
she was fighting her own battles.
Yeah. Substance abuse, insecurity, the pressure of fame, it all took a toll. Her death, it's a reminder of how fragile life is and how important mental health is.
So where does Janis Joplin land on our list?
Her role as a female rock star, her incredible voice, her ability to move people with her raw emotion, it all earns her the number 7 spot. Proof that even a short career can leave a lasting legacy, from raw power to like pure sunshine. At number 6, we've got the band that captured that California sound like no other, the Beach Boys.
The Beach Boys, yeah. You can't hear their music without picturing like beaches and surfing, that whole California vibe.
It's instant vacation, their music, But it wasn't just like simple fun in the sun. Those harmonies, those vocal arrangements, they were incredibly intricate and innovative.
They made it sound so effortless, though, didn't they?
That's the magic of Brian Wilson. He was the mastermind behind a lot of their music. A real studio wizard, always pushing the boundaries. Take Good Vibrations, for instance.
Oh, yeah, Good Vibrations. What a song.
It was revolutionary. Back then, pop songs were pretty straightforward, like 3 minutes, in and out. But Brian Wilson wanted to create something different, something that captured those good vibrations he was singing about. So he spent months in the studio just experimenting, trying different instruments, recording techniques. He even used a theremin, that instrument that makes that eerie, otherworldly sound.
I heard he was a bit of a perfectionist.
Oh, he was, but that's kind of what led to such incredible music. He wasn't satisfied with the ordinary, He wanted to create something extraordinary, and he did. Good Vibrations became a massive hit, and it's still considered one of the most innovative pop songs ever.
It's funny to think that a song about good vibes could be so complex.
Right, but that was the Beach Boys' magic. They could take these simple themes, surfing, cars, girls, and turn them into these layered, intricate pieces of music. And those harmonies, forget about it. Nothing like it at the time. Precise, soaring, full of emotion.
So given their innovation and their impact, why just number 6 for the Beach Boys?
Their influence was huge, especially in the mid-60s. But later on, their music didn't have quite the same staying power. They were pioneers, for sure, But the bands we've got higher on our list, they took those innovations and went even further, creating music that had a longer-lasting impact on how rock and roll developed.
Okay, from those sunny California beaches, we're heading over to the streets of London. At number 5, we have the band that basically invented the bad boy image, the Rolling Stones.
The Rolling Stones. Yeah, they're like synonymous with rock and roll rebellion, right? They took the blues, gave it this raw energy, and it was both thrilling and kind of dangerous.
And they've been going strong for over 60 years.
It's incredible, shows their talent, their chemistry, their ability to adapt and evolve. But hey, let's be real, that bad boy image helped too.
Oh, for sure. Those drug busts, the lyrics, that whole aura of danger around them, it just added to the mystique.
Exactly. They embodied that rock and roll spirit of pushing boundaries, you know? And it wasn't just an act. They lived that life. Think about the Altamont Free concert in '69, supposed to be this counterculture celebration, but it turned into chaos.
That's the one where a fan was killed during their set, right?
Tragic. Cast a dark shadow over the band. But it also cemented their image as these ultimate rock and roll rebels.
Let's talk about the music. You can't get no Satisfaction, Gimme Shelter, Sympathy for the Devil. Those are anthems.
Oh, they are. Keith Richards' riffs, instantly recognizable, and Mick Jagger, the ultimate frontman, all swagger and charisma. And you can't forget Charlie Watts, their drummer. He was the backbone, so solid, so steady.
So why number 5 for the Rolling Stones? They're legends.
No question. But while they perfected a certain style of rock and roll, they weren't like as musically innovative as some of the other bands. They were masters of what they did, but the bands above them, they really took rock and roll in some new, unexpected directions.
All right. Time to pay homage to the godfather of rock and roll. At number 4, we have the man who really laid the foundation, Chuck Berry.
Chuck Berry, he was the architect, man. His influence, you can hear it in practically every rock band that came after him.
What was it about his music that was so groundbreaking?
Well, he took blues, country, even a little gospel, and he blended it all together into this new high-energy sound. But it wasn't just the music itself, right? It was his songwriting. He wrote about being a teenager, about cars, girls, that desire for freedom.
Yeah, Johnny B. Good, Maybelline, Roll Over Beethoven, they became anthems for a whole generation.
Exactly. And his guitar playing was something else, too. Those double stops, those bluesy licks, so catchy, so influential. And of course, you can't forget the duck walk.
Oh, yeah, that iconic move.
Pure showmanship, but it also, emphasized the energy of the music. Chuck Berry wasn't just playing it, he was embodying it.
So with his foundational role, why number 4 for Chuck Berry?
He laid the groundwork, no doubt. But the artists higher on our list, they took that and ran with it, added their own unique touches, took the music even further.
All right, we're getting into the top 3 now. The excitement is building. At number 3, we have the king of rock and roll himself, Elvis Presley.
Elvis, he was more than a musician, you know. He was a phenomenon. He hit the scene in the mid-50s, and he changed everything.
That voice, that charisma, those moves, he had audiences going wild.
He was dangerous, too. Parents were freaked out by the hip shaking, the lyrics. He represented this rebellious youth culture that was emerging, and it really scared the establishment.
And his music was this blend of influences, right?
Oh, yeah. Country, blues, gospel, all fused together into this new electrifying sound. Hound Dog, Jailhouse Rock, Suspicious Minds, instant classics.
And what a story, right? From poverty to, becoming one of the most famous people in the world.
The American dream in a sequin jumpsuit. And his influence, it went beyond music. Fashion, film, even the way people talked, Elvis was everywhere.
So why number 3 for Elvis?
He was the king. He made rock and roll popular, made it a global phenomenon. But the 2 artists at the very top of our list, they took rock and roll to even greater heights, both in terms of innovation and global influence.
The anticipation is killing me. We're so close to the top. At number 2, we have the band that ignited a cultural revolution. The Beatles.
The Beatles. They were more than a band, too, weren't they? They came out of Liverpool, and they took over the world.
Beatlemania, that was a real thing.
Oh, yeah. Nothing like it before. Their music was catchy, they were charming, and they had this youthful energy that was just infectious.
Their appearance on Ed Sullivan in '64, that was huge, right?
Pivotal. It was like the whole country was watching. And from that moment on, they were superstars.
In their songwriting. John Lennon and Paul McCartney, that was a magical partnership.
They pushed each other, you know. They experimented with different genres, brought in unconventional instruments, and they weren't afraid to play around in the studio.
Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, that's considered a masterpiece of psychedelic rock.
A game changer, that album. They turned the studio into an instrument itself, using tape loops, backwards recordings, all these techniques that were basically unheard of in pop music at the time.
And their later albums, like Abbey Road, showed a more mature, introspective side to their music.
They evolved, they grew as artists, which is why their music still connects with people today.
So why number 2 for the Beatles? They revolutionized music.
No doubt about it. But the band that takes the top spot, they pushed the boundaries of rock even further, creating a sound that was heavier, more experimental, and ultimately more influential in the evolution of the genre.
This is it, the moment of truth. The number 1 spot on our list of the top 11 rock and roll singers and bands of the 50s to the 70s goes to
Led Zeppelin.
Led Zeppelin. It's like the name itself just screams power.
Yeah.
They weren't just a band, were they? They were like a force of nature.
Right. They took the blues and just infused it with this heavy, almost like mystical energy, and the level of musicianship, it was just unbelievable.
Let's break it down. You've got Jimmy Page, one of the all-time greats on guitar.
Those riffs. Instantly recognizable. He could make that guitar do anything, sing, scream, wail. He was a master of like creating these sonic landscapes, both beautiful and intense.
And then you have Robert Plant with that insane vocal range.
Oh man, those high notes. He could hit them with power and clarity, but also bring that bluesy grit to his voice. And on stage, electrifying.
And John Paul Jones on bass and keyboards.
He was the anchor, the solid foundation that let Page and Plant just soar. And he was a phenomenal musician in his own right, too.
And of course, John Bonham on drums.
Bonham, he was a beast. He changed what it meant to be a rock drummer. So powerful, so precise, so creative. He was the driving force behind that Led Zeppelin sound.
Their 4th album, Led Zeppelin, the Fifth, it's a masterpiece. You've got hard rocking anthems like Black Dog, and then that epic mystical Stairway to Heaven.
That album, it really shows their range, They could be heavy and bluesy, but also acoustic and folky, even epic and transcendent. And they did it all with so much conviction, so much passion.
Stairway to Heaven, it's like one of those songs that it takes you somewhere else.
It does. It starts off so gentle, almost delicate, and then it just builds and builds, layer upon layer, until it reaches this incredible climax. It's a masterpiece of songwriting, arranging, performing, everything.
And their live shows, legendary. They were known for just like these extended jams, raw energy.
Oh, they pushed the boundaries of what a rock concert could be, jamming for hours, exploring different musical ideas, feeding off the energy of the crowd.
It all ended in 1980, though, with the death of John Bonham.
Yeah, a huge loss. And the rest of the band decided to call it quits. They said Led Zeppelin couldn't continue without Bonham, they couldn't replace him, and they didn't want to try.
So after this incredible trip through rock and roll history, why does Led Zeppelin end up at the top of the mountain?
The innovation, the influence on so many other artists, the sheer power of their music, their legendary status, it all adds up to make them the undisputed champions of our countdown.
Wow. What an amazing journey through rock and roll history. From those early pioneers to the icons who defined a generation, it's been a blast. And hey, if you enjoyed this deep dive, hit that like button, subscribe, and leave us a comment. Let us know who your favorite artists are and why. And until next time, keep on rocking.